Go
Fuck
for
it, we're going.
it. Oh,
Fuck it, baby. So I just ugly cried.
you did.
It was fantastic.
Did it just hit you out of nowhere? Like, because sometimes that'll happen. You just sit in your own emotions and it's just like, wow. But is that what happened, or was there something on your mind already?
Well, I mean, and I think this is good. I mean, I think I've been talking about it on social media a lot already, but I've been going through a breakup, and I think it's one of those things where like it's one I think it's one of those things where it's always on your mind, right? But you don't know how much it is until you like silence everything else around you and you're
Yeah.
just like in it. So I think for me, it's like that's what I've been trying to do more actively the last couple months. And so I got like a little makeshift meditation corner I have in my closet that I just set up. So I like put my yoga mat down, threw a like a weighted blanket on top of me, and threw some
Mhm.
meditation music in. And I think it was like the first, it was literally like the last, like I heard my timer going off in the background. It was literally like the last minute. I was just like ugly crying. I was like,
Bro, you need to get a meditation pillow. Have you ever had one of those?
I haven't had a meditation
It's
pillow.
a, or it's a it's like a meditation pillow slash pad. It's
Mm,
if you just search that on Amazon, it's a two-part. Someone got me one for Christmas. It's like it looks like a mini dog bed with
mm,
an extra firm pillow. Because like with meditation, you got to be comfortable, right? Because
mm-hmm.
you're going to be there for a while, and it's another distraction if like your legs are cramping, your knees are hurting. But if you're sitting, let's say crisscross applesauce,
Yeah.
some people like it's basically a pillow on top of another like looking dog bed looking thing,
Yeah.
so comfy. Like if you can't like if like a lot of times if I meditate when I'm laying down, I fall asleep.
Mm,
You know, but
yeah.
so this way, but so sometimes people can't sit for long periods of time without like their
Right.
knees hurting or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, get yourself a meditation cushion.
I'll look into that. I would also say to go along with your when you tend to sleep during meditation, normally they say that's a good thing. It just means, I mean, knowing you it means you're sleep deprived. So it's like it's probably a good thing.
Daddy's in sleep debt. Yep, 100%. 100%.
30 hours of sleep debt. How are we gonna make that up?
That's right. It's like
Well,
normal debt. You just make some more.
that's right. Just use my credit card.
That's
Well,
right.
uh, as you know how we roll when you and I either do podcasts, you're on your own or anything like that. I have no intention for this. This is literally just I want to catch up with your life because you've been having a lot of like introspective,
Stuff.
yeah, like major life
Stuff.
changes going on.
Yeah.
And I always like listening back to our episodes because you go, like I said, you go back from the very first one you and I ever did together to the next one after that. It's just very cool to see your progress as a human being and how you've grown and developed mentally, physically, and emotionally over that time. So why don't you just kind of give me a little catch up, man? Where are you at right now in your life and all that?
Things are all over the place, especially considering since last time I've been on here. What has happened? I'm trying to think from like from last time, but like current up to date. I mean, I completely redid my overhauled my entire business
Mm,
and I'm taking it in a direction I've never done before. I am going. I've switched therapists since we chatted last on the show, and this therapist is another caliber. Like this
mm,
woman has gotten me to feel things and see things and remember things that I have not in years, and I have ugly cried with her more than I
mm,
have with any other human.
yeah.
Um, what else? What else am I missing? I know you and I talk like off camera like every day, but what I'm trying to think, what else am I missing? There's
I
been continuing to do with stuff with Shelby, like with our
mm,
relationship. We're actually getting ready to start couple sessions with this new therapist.
yeah.
We did couple sessions with our last therapist, but we both kind of basically like it got to the point with our last therapist, like she was great, it was awesome for the chapter of life we had her, but it's just kind of like when you outgrow a coach kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm actually really intimidated. Like I think our session's tomorrow, I think. Yeah, I'm scared. Like it's interesting. I'm like I'm pretty and I'm because this therapist just like sees things I don't, and like
Mm.
has a way of like, oh, you're doing this, and I'm like, ah, fuck, I didn't know. So I'm a little bit like nervous,
Yeah.
which even she says is super normal, like most men of a couple. Because like the thing is, with Shelby and I, like we're starting couple sessions with nothing wrong. It's not like,
Yeah.
like most people wait till the sky is falling before getting that kind of help, but we want to keep things great, and just another level of whatever. So,
Mm.
um, but I think in the back of my head, I'm like, are things good? Like, am I like
Mm.
we both
Yeah.
are happy, but it's like, am I somehow a selfish prick? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's this running joke where I've had in my life several experiences with a lot of like narcissistic assholes,
Mm.
and like in the back of my head, I'm like, am I a closet narcissist? And
Right.
my last therapist said, closet narcissists don't ask if they're closet
I
narcissists.
was gonna say.
You know what I mean?
It's not even
So
on their radar, dude.
they're like,
It's
I'm
usually
God.
everybody
What are you
else's
kidding?
fault.
Yeah. So that's going on. Yeah. Trying to
Cool.
think. I feel like, is there anything else? Am I missing anything?
Uh,
Like each one of those is big by itself. Like this big business change, the big stuff
yeah,
in my relationship, the big
yeah,
like there's all that stuff is big
yeah.
by itself. So
Well, good. So then let's talk about your big business change first. So like I guess what is it and what prompted it?
um it's interesting. So the shift is I actually am downsizing my company. And I made the post like I don't know last week, I think. Whereas I just the it's a double-edged sword. I just don't um it's a double-edged sword where the thing that I thought I wanted, I don't want anymore. And then
Mm,
what it takes to maintain what I thought I wanted is not what it used to be. So what I mean
mm,
by that is the old vision was I want to help as many people as possible, right?
yeah.
Um, and I built the business to a really high point. Like it was kind of like I had a moment at the last speaking engagement that I had where I was teaching a room full of coaches. You were there. It was
Mm,
at Coaching Con, and the and like it hit me in the face when the announcer called me up, when the guy that was headlining it, and I have it recorded, which is like the coolest thing because it still gives me chills. Is like the announcer said, he said from small town personal trainer to seven-figure business owner Jared Hamilton.
mm,
And then everyone stood up and cheered and all this stuff, and it was like, when did this happen?
right.
Right. So like there's a lot of like in that when I heard it like for the first time, like no one's ever introed me like that, and I was like,
Mm,
holy shit, where and so I built this business to a really high level that I like truthfully I never thought I would do. And this is the dream that I always wanted. But then it's interesting, it's like once you get it, it's like I think that dream is changing a little bit.
mm,
Not only is it I feel like the dream is changing, but also like what it takes to maintain that is not what I just don't want to, I just don't want to do it anymore. Not
mm,
coaching, it's for me it was the vision was I want to help as many people as possible. And so I,
mm,
for the last 5 years, was in a state of how many people can I hire? How big can I grow this thing? How much can
right.
I do? How much, all the things. And it's great, but then that also takes a toll. I know, I think
Mm,
you saw it, like really saw
yeah.
what it looked like when you were here staying with me for this last time. And we were watching Christmas movies at 11 o'clock at night and I was on my computer, right?
Mm,
Like
yeah.
there's a, like it takes a lot, whether that's like my own personal boundary stuff that I'm working through or a level of like, but if the business is low in certain areas, like I've got to do what I've got to do to keep things afloat for everybody else. So it's one of those things where, I just don't think I want to take care of myself more. I truthfully became kind of a
Mm,
walking contradiction. We teach our clients to build their lives to the point that makes them happy, to take care of themselves and do all these things. And somehow I started kind of being almost a hypocrite where it was like I was sacrificing my well-being
mm,
for the greater good, so to
right.
speak. But um it's interesting, the more introspective you become, it's like that you notice like the heavier things get really quickly. Like what you used to be able to
Yeah.
just like suppress and forget about, it's like you're sensitive to everything. So I'd been
Mm,
feeling for a while that like this was the move I needed to make, but
mm,
I didn't, I was second guessing my intuition. I was like, oh, I'm just distracted, or oh, it was a slow month, or those kind of things, when in reality it was like, you know what, I think this is, it's just this chapter is closing. Whether it was,
mm,
you know, whatever, like whether it was a universal thing, it was like, hey, like Kyle Cease says, is like when things are falling apart, like maybe we're not supposed to try to hold things together. Like trees don't like
mm,
try to keep the leaves on. It's just part of the process. So
yeah.
for me, it was almost like I think this was almost like the push in the right direction, because now I feel more aligned the most aligned and happy I've ever been. Is so now the current stage is it's not helping as many people as possible, it's helping the right people. Um,
Mm,
because that's truthfully how to change a complete household is you just need like one or two people to completely shift, and that changes the dynamic of that person's. It's like this the ripple effect where what I'm doing now is I've been feeling this for a while. I'm back in the front lines of coaching. So for the first time in years, I have my own personal roster now.
mhm,
Versus what it was is I had this whole team of coaches, and because that was the mission and what I was helping them with is it was my job to make sure like they had clients and those clients were fulfilled and things like that. So I was
mhm.
playing a lot of operator manager. But now I've been feeling like I need to be back in the front lines. So I'm
Yeah.
literally going completely off my intuition and gut on it, on all this. So I've downsized my company. I'm not running the assistant quote unquote the assistant coach model anymore. And where it's I'm doing the one-on-one coaching, and then I haven't announced this yet, but the next thing that's coming at the time of recording this, it will open in about 4-ish weeks, 5 weeks or so,
Mhm,
is I'm going to be opening up a this is the scary part is I've never scaled what I'm about to try to scale, where
mhm,
I want to bring what I call dieting from the inside out to where it's more accessible to most people in a fashion that they need it. Because for the
mhm,
longest time, like the push has always been like, you need a coach, you need a one-on-one coach. And the only way I've been able to help with that with this dieting from the inside out stuff is inside one-on-one coaching. But the problem is it's not as scalable. Like there's only so many people I can help, and there's only so many people that can, then there's a level of like, well, then can afford it. And then all the intricacies of it versus, well, I've been feeling like what I feel like I'm best at is when I can teach, is when it's, I think it's why I
mhm,
love podcasting, why I love speaking, what I love, like, I love doing this. I love doing webinars. It's so I'm going to lean into that and basically one to many coach, where I'm going to be opening up almost like it's almost a collective where
mhm,
it's more accessible for people who want that kind of help, where I can teach at a mass level the things that I was teaching in one-on-one coaching, but it's more accessible to everyone else who wants it and going to build and cultivate a very special community. So that's kind
mhm.
of, but that's where I feel I'm most aligned with right now.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll see what happens in about a month. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think, and I've already told you this, but I'm super proud of you for doing that because, I mean, there's a few things I wrote down just from you saying that is you. One thing that stuck out to me is like wants change, right? And I think that is so important to emphasize, especially for anybody listening, is that what you maybe originally wanted at one point in time isn't necessarily what you're going to want when you get there, right?
hmm
Or it's going to change or it's going to evolve. And I think that is a very introspective thing because if you don't realize that your wants are changing, then you kind of put yourself on this rat race of a life where you're doing things out of what you perceived you wanted or the person you were at the time wanted. But it is such an important thing to evolve and realize, like, hey, I just don't want this anymore because of this, this,
hmm
this. And I like that you also said that the more work that you do on yourself, and by work we mean, mental health work, understanding your more self-awareness, right? You do become sensitive to everything. It's so funny.
Everything.
It's so funny you said that because like as you're saying that, I just immediately like flash back to like even just like let's say like 7 years ago me where I've always been like a empathetic person, like an empath for sure, but like not really with myself or like I would
Yeah.
be, but I wouldn't entertain those thoughts. So just and it's so true though, because once you start doing more of it, you feel more for
Oh, yeah.
yourself, you feel more for others, right? Like it's crazy. I can't tell you how
Yeah.
many like calls I have with clients and I'm just like welling up by their story, like
Yeah.
tearing from their stories or
Yeah. It's like you start, it's like ever since I've been in therapy, it's like it takes nothing to make me cry. I went from being an emotional or less emotional, hardly ever cried, and now it's like I can't watch a clip of America's Got Talent without getting teary-eyed over a little fucking prodigy playing violin. And it's like, what the fuck,
right.
why is this happening? Or like even like we had that conversation last night, and
Mm-hmm.
I called to talk to you about some stuff I was feeling and working through that was newer for me, for those listening. But like without even thinking about it, I'm like, man, it feels like a ball of fire in my stomach. I went straight to like describing where I felt it in my body and the
Yeah.
sensation versus Like I would never do that before. Like
Right.
I'd be talking to my therapist. I'm like, well, this emotion of anxiety feels like a lump in my throat.
Mm,
But this anger I'm experiencing, I feel it like a ball of fire in my stomach.
yeah.
Versus when I got this realization that I wanted to change the course of my business. As soon as I decided that's what I wanted to do, I felt like a warm water balloon exploded in my stomach. Like as corny
Mm,
as that might sound, but being able to understand where these feelings are at in your body
yeah.
it helps your level of self-awareness. But once you start doing this work, you're sensitive to everything. It's like you
Yeah.
feel everything even more. So
Yeah. And I like what you said too about the warm water balloon because it's like one, you felt this pressure of that water balloon first, probably this pressure to something needs to change. You don't know how or what, but something needs to change. And then once you realize what it was and realize that you were going to take that next step,
mhm.
water balloon pops and that warm water sort of flushes your body and brings you peace, right? Which I think is really cool. It's a great analogy that you used. And I like what you're describing too with like tuning into the actual physical symptoms your body is noting, right? And that's called like somatic, right? So being somatic, so understanding that when you feel this anxiety, like people are like, I feel anxious, right? But when you say, well, what does that look like? Or what does that feel like in your body? What's your body telling you? You're like, I feel tightness in my chest, right? I feel like a lump in my throat. I feel like some people might say, like, I feel my stomach turning, right? And then tuning into that and then listening more, be like, well, why do I feel this way? Right. And I think that is a really powerful, we'll say strategy tool, but also self-awareness because when we tune in to these physical symptoms, it paints that picture for us where most of us like I can speak for myself, and maybe you could speak about this too. Like when you're first going through like this inner work stuff and mental health and all these things, like the most common answer I would give was I don't know. Right?
Mhm.
Like I don't know. Like I don't know. And like that's to me, it's like I've realized I don't know is such a bullshit answer. Like sometimes we don't know, or sometimes we're like, I don't know yet. It's really like an I don't know yet when it's a real answer. But most of the time, when I would say, speaking for myself, when I would say I don't know, I knew the answer, right? It's
Mm.
just I was afraid to look into
You're
why.
judging it.
Exactly. You're judging it and you're shaming it and you're guilting it and you're not letting it out of the pen. So I think that is such a beautiful way that you've sort of one used it to follow your intuition to know like okay this is my body's telling me this is my
Mhm.
next step.
The other thing is, and I didn't realize this until I was quite a bit of ways in my whatever personal journey of all this stuff.
Mm,
I got this from Kyle. I didn't realize this till I was at his event, and I was like, oh, like it hit me in the face where most people when they start to tune in to like what's going on inside them, they instantly disqualify it with
mm,
and they make it about the thing on the outside. So for example, I'll go, cool, what do you like? I might say to someone, cool, what do you feel right now? And they go, man, I feel anxious because my boss at work did. I'm like, well, hang on. Like you just made a qualifier of because my boss at work. Now you started to go inward. I feel anxiety because my boss at work, and now you just put it back out there. Versus I didn't
mm,
realize this till Kyle started talking about this more. He goes, well, how about we just remove the qualifier of my boss did it? It's I feel anxiety. Period,
mm,
and then be with that because too often we I think have a tendency to make it about the thing on the outside.
mm,
Like for example, like I feel with like I was talking about like when you're talking about the rat race of what I was feeling is like I felt trapped in my business because of it's like well pause, how about we just I feel trapped,
mm,
and then be with that. And then there's a lot more that comes from that. Whereas whatever we're feeling, we have a tendency to, as people, to have these qualifiers of I feel angry because my husband said this and did it. Well, okay, how about we just
mm,
feel angry? I feel
mm,
angry because if do like a little case by side, if I say I'm angry, that's it. Or
yeah,
I'm angry because my husband said this nasty thing to me.
mm,
What's it about? This is about the emotion. This is about the husband.
right,
So a lot of times we almost unconsciously um, make this attempt of a self-introspective moment about someone else and disregard ourselves again. Versus we need to go, what do I feel right now? Anxiety. Cool.
yeah,
Where do I feel it in my body?
yeah,
Sometimes I feel it, mostly I feel it in my throat.
yeah,
But sometimes I feel it in the pit of my stomach. Sometimes I feel it in my shoulders, right? Like, those kind of things. Um,
mm,
but I think it's part of the game is we naturally want to remove ourselves from it again, or we want to
Mm,
take the focus off of ourselves versus we have to keep it here, you know?
yeah. Yeah. I was smiling because of our conversation last night. How you were expressing like anger and all these things
Yeah.
and it is such a interesting thing, right? Because I think what you were discussing was like the anger being such a new emotion for you to navigate and feel and kind of
Hmm.
understand. And I love that you basically like gave yourself advice for like,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
what you were
Yeah.
feeling.
So not to go down this rabbit hole too
Right.
deep, but like, yeah, like, for those listening last night, so an emotion that I don't experience very often is anger. I
Mm,
can't tell you 4 times in my life I've ever been truly angry.
mm,
Frustration, yeah, but I've always considered those different. But I've got some stuff going on in my life that has been
mm,
triggering some anger,
mm,
and this is new for me. And so that's why it's important to have a coach, or have it's important to have a support system, because
mm,
um instead of me doing something with that anger, I called Ryan, and I'm like,
mm,
hey, because like that's things I appreciate about you Ryan, is I know A, you're there, but B, I know I can trust you with this kind of stuff, where and this has been a both thing, like you've like, hey, I'm struggling, you've called me, and we've
mm,
been on that, and then but at the same time, like last night I was like, I'm feeling things I haven't felt before or in
mm,
years, and like I need to talk to someone. um
mm.
and then I ruined Ryan's vibe of coming out of yoga. He's like, what you doing, man? And you're like, dude, I feel great, I got out of yoga, I'm so relaxed. I'm like, I'm fucking furious right now, and I have never felt this, and I need some support. So you're like,
Yeah.
all right, bro, let's dive in.
Yeah. Well, you know what I love, dude? It was probably the best time to call me, man, because I think,
Yeah, you were
uh,
zen as fuck.
yeah, I was so zen, dude. But I think it's like I think, and I just wrote this down, but I think peace is the best support, right? Because
Mm,
it really is like if I had my own things going on or if I was experiencing things that, hey, I called you the week before. I was just like, I think I want to get back together with my girlfriend. Like, I don't know what like that's going on, like this, that. Like I had my mind was like a rat race itself, and I was
mm-hmm.
in my own emotions, all these things. But like if I didn't constantly focus on, okay, like what do I need to do for myself to bring myself peace and clarity, then I wouldn't have been the Zen fuck that you were able to have a conversation with me last
Yeah.
night, because peace is the best support. And I do think it is so like I think that is why it's so important to find things that help bring you more clarity. And this is why I think you and I always say like, well, workout isn't therapy, all these things, but we can also say like exercise, all these things is helps bring you closer to clarity, right? Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
I've come to find is like, no, I'm not talking to my therapist while doing a bench press, but me unloading some external stress is bringing my mind more focus on what I'm repressing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I do think it is like that's why it was Mr. Miyagi like last night when you were able to call me and all that. Um, but yeah, I do think that is the importance of finding support system, and that's actually something I read recently where it's, we have our partner, like you have Shelby, right? Your partner who you can confide in a lot with and different things. And she's been there since you were fucking a baby. So you guys have a lot of root systems and she understands you completely. But then it's also important. I think a lot of people get mixed up when they think that one person has to be everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
Codependency.
Right, codependency for sure. Like one person does not have to be everything. Like you can have mentors that help you with business. You can have a mentor that helps you with your health. You can have a friend who is a mental health support. You can have a sibling who is like your music guru or things like that. Like it's important to, at least from what I've discovered so far in life, it's important to have different sources of people who you can reach out to for specific
Mm-hmm.
things in your life that you need.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the old saying, it takes a village, but I don't think that
Mm,
ever changes, because I think it's interesting, even to this day, outside of the death pen, the death, like death row for punishment, the worst thing we can do to someone is put them in a room alone.
mm,
Literally, like if you like outside of like lethal injection, like if you do the most fucked up things in this world, you'll get put in solitary confinement. The worst thing we can do to someone is put them alone.
Mm,
Like that's
mm.
crazy, you know, not crazy, but it's you take away every ounce of
Yeah.
social systems, support systems, communication. It's it's and someone will go to a crazy point. It's that's why like it's interesting to say the least. But
Mm,
that's why I think it's important to, well, what's the opposite of that is we need to have a support system. But I
mm,
also think it's important because this is something that it's taken me a long time to not fall into, is I used to view whoever I'm getting help from as the savior.
mm,
As in where like if I was learning business from this guy, I have to duplicate every facet of my business to what this guy's methodology is. Or if I was working with this coach, I've got to adopt every belief they have about fitness nutrition. Or if I'm
mm.
working with this therapist, I have to eat, sleep, and breathe everything that they believe.
Right.
Whereas I would become a disciple of theirs. Is the epitome of like kind of all or nothing thinking. But the
Mm,
problem is we need to be able to lean into these support systems, but then pull what is most relevant, most aligned, but also have enough of and a level of acuity that we can take the gold, throw away the dirt. Whereas we can apply it and make it a level of our own. Whereas
mm,
you are completely independent, but you're still getting help from all these things. Like I said, in the world of business mentorships, because I've had a business mentor in some facet for literally like most of my career. But
mm,
I used to always, I had to be a disciple of this person versus where I'm at now. I view I'm my own savior of whatever
mm.
it is. And I'm looking at the people that I'm getting help from as like, okay, I'm taking that into consideration. Oh, that's a great fucking idea. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
I like the idea, but it doesn't feel quite right with my personal whatever. It doesn't quite feel aligned, but I like the intent, so I'm going to do this with it. And I think we can do that for all this
Mm,
stuff. But again, there's a dichotomy because we have to be
yeah.
coachable, but we have to also have a level of understanding of, is this aligned with me? Like there's a nuance there. This is why we
Mm,
can't just live in all or nothing either. So
yeah. I like that. I think it's like that concept of, are you just duplicating yourself, or are you picking things that you like from one person, adding that to
mm-hmm.
what you are, who you are? And I think that is, again, because I've been down that road too, where I've drank the Kool-Aid from a lot of people. I'm just like, no, this is what we did. And it's just like, no, it's like, no, I really value how this person communicates with people. I want to start incorporating that with here. Or I really
Mm-hmm.
like the way this person approaches business because they have a very human first approach, right? And it's always, how can we help? How can we help? And I think it's important to pick and choose what you want to add to the person that you are. But also, we know at the same time, like authenticity is like the key to life. So making it your own and making it authentic to keep authentic to you.
Jeez,
Sorry, I
bro.
swallowed my tongue.
Ryan has a stroke, guys.
That's right.
Welcome to Jared's podcast now. I'll take
I am adding a stroke to my my tool belt. Tough on me. But it's so true. Actually, I wrote down, I think it's really cool just to like take a moment from the podcast, which is like, isn't it cool that, dude, we're just like, this is a cool moment. We're talking about some deep mental health shit with a couple buds. And it's just like, that's just a cool thing. You know,
it
it's like
is.
super grateful just to be like, yeah, we're just having a nice deep conversation that helps somebody cool. If not, like, I like it.
I'm having a joyous time. Bro, it's why I'm especially like I'm in a season of like I'm just documenting so much stuff because in like less creating stuff
Mm,
because just documenting almost what is
yeah,
without any whatever is just a cool thing. Like whether
yeah.
to any if anyone watches this, I'm enjoying myself with just this conversation alone. But
Mm,
it's also like it's just I think there's so much of there's something I've been leaning into a lot lately is having what I'm calling high intention, low attachment. Whereas
mm,
it's just a lot of what is and like not being so attached to whatever outcome is on the other side of like, well,
mm,
what is. But then that's more introspection. What do I feel? What feels most aligned? I mean, I'll be able to put words to it, but like my gut tells me I should just do this. You know,
right.
I think that's where a lot of magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could tell, like, I think a lot of people, and it's funny you said that because that's something I've noticed too, where it's like over the years, again, I'll talk about my version of it, but over the years, I did find like when you're creating content, it's like do these things to this is your tools to do this, but you kind of lose sort of like your purpose or like your own story within it, right? So that's why I really like what you're doing with your content right now too. Like you're including your gym workouts with Shelby, you're including your workouts with me where I'm shitting my pants because I got some little food poison shit going on. And I think it's cool because one, I don't know about you, but I love making that content because it just feels very like authentic and
Yeah.
like you said, it's just like this is just me and like I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm not trying to be like the ultimate coach or anything like that. I'm just being Yared Hamilton or being Ryan Cassim. It's like all these things. And I think that's what I really like about your content right now too, is because it almost feels like because I think that's like ever since I've known you, it's always been like tool belt this, tool belt that, inner work stuff. But I think it's this. I think the first time I've really seen you kind of put that to the side and just be like, hey, this
Hmm.
is me, my personality. This is how my wife and I interact. This is the
Yeah.
real shit I'm going through.
Well, along those lines though, here's the pitfall I fall into naturally. I want to only pump that out. Go back to all or
Yeah.
nothing thinking. I want to go, okay, fuck strategies and tactics. I'm just gonna document Jared live. And then
Right.
all of a sudden that, but then all of a sudden it's okay, that's almost too much.
Right.
Versus there'll be times I'll be just doing my thing and I'll go, you know what? I think this would be a really dope video with these three steps. And then
Mm.
I'll go make it
Yeah.
from that. You know what I mean? I think there's a healthy balance. It's like anything else. I think there's it's anything good has a dichotomy,
Mm.
right? Like where does I mean, like think about like a relationship. If my wife and I are attached to the hip and we never leave each other's side, okay, that's a lot of Jared time. Like that's gonna get
Yeah.
really old really fast. But I also don't want to be in a long distance relationship either.
Right.
Well, so like there's a dichotomy, right? Like what about like we all know codependency is bad, right?
Mm.
Like codependency is bad, but not but you also want to be married and have a relationship with someone that you're independent
Mm.
with. So it's like anything good has a dichotomy.
Yeah.
Like let's say you're raising a kid, whereas you want to make sure they don't grow up to be a serial killer and
Right.
they end up being a productive member of society, but you can't like handhold, babysit, and coddle.
Right.
Well, like they've got to learn failure. They've got to learn to make decisions for their own. They got to understand like they're gonna fall down sometimes. So
Mm.
anything good has a dichotomy, and I think that's the reason we naturally go to all or nothing thinking is it requires no nuance. We
Mm.
see that in food, we see that in relationships and kids and in everything. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm feeling in my content is like I naturally want to go, okay, well, what's the magic ratio of strategy tactics
Right.
with like just documenting bullshit and me like fucking trying to rap in laying on the floor of a gym. Like I don't
Mm.
but again, it's like it doesn't matter. Is there a right? There's no right formula.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a good point. It's like as soon as you start trying to think like what's the best ratio, what's the best metric, I think it always circles back to, well, what's my intention, right? My intention with this is everything. And I think it gets muddied and murky, especially when you have a business and you have metrics you need to hit and numbers you need to hit. And this is what's producing leads in my business. So I need
Yeah.
to really focus. And you put so much pressure on it that I
Hmm.
think it really takes away from sometimes it takes us out of our intention with it. So I think, like I said, I think you have a good balance of it right now where you're like, okay, this is tool belt content and this is just Yared Hamilton content. Right.
Yeah,
I
Hamilton.
think
That's
that's
right.
really important. I have a interesting thing. So I have some I happen to see my journal next to me. But would you want to go back and forth? Because you said that you have this new therapist and you've really learned a lot and pulled a lot. Like she's Mr. Miyagi'd you in terms of like bringing a lot of things out of you. Would you want to kind of go back and forth on maybe like some lessons or some revelations that you've had from your therapy sessions that maybe we can one just share our own and be vulnerable, but
Hmm.
two maybe help someone else who can hear from
Yeah.
our revelations.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Do you want me to start or you to start?
I know the first one just hit
All right,
me.
go.
So the first one is of course I'm curious. I'm probably gonna get emotional at some point in here. Like if I
Go.
don't, I think we're doing something wrong. So the first the when you said that, I was because I'm big believer in like what's the first thing that comes, right? Like it's like when I like to ask people like random questions because we don't know. I have no idea what you're gonna ask him. We don't have any intentions going into this.
Mm,
But when you said that, the first thing that came to mind was um it was an inner child thing. So, because we all know, like, we all have an inner child. We all have, that's where a lot of main struggles stem from, right?
mm,
Well, my therapist caught some verbiage that I was using regarding my inner child. So, um, it's just like a mentor of mine years ago said, if you want to heal the man, you must heal the little boy. To heal the woman, you must heal the little girl. We have to go inward to have results outward, right? So,
Mm.
um, and I said jokingly, I'm like, yeah, that fucker. Da, 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 da. And she goes, hang on, hang on. Did you just call your inner child that fucker? Because here's what happens. I'll joke because I'll still like with this, I'll still like joke like around whatever, and my therapist won't laugh. I'll be like, oh yeah, da, 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 and she'll just go, interesting, and write that down. I'm like, oh fuck. Like this bitch is stealing my jokes. I'm
You're
no,
like,
no,
that
no.
joke bombed.
Right, right, right. Well, but she stopped me. She goes, that fucker. She goes, I feel like there's some anger and some resentment around him. Like him meaning my inner child. For context, everyone's inner child is different. Mine is roughly 13. Mine is it's a very specific 13-year-old version of myself. And I go, yeah, well, it's because all these issues around that, like from that I'm struggling with, that it all stemmed from there. And it's just like this little kid version of me that just is scared, all this stuff. It's like, it's causing so much, many issues on the surface. And it's just like the doubt, the worry, the anxiety, the fear, the protector that I'm just like, fuck,
Mm.
why won't he like shut up? And she goes, what's he need? And I'm like, because I'm thinking, because I grew up with a dad that would get very like, "What's wrong with you?" Da, 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 and get like loud and get like it would almost act like that. And it's almost like I'm noticing that's how I would almost act to my inner child. Is it's just like you're almost like you're a pest. You're causing problems. What's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? And nothing gets fixed that way. And she did an inner child session with me, and I literally felt like I was tripping on something. Like we did an actual prompted inner child session where I like closed my eyes, she prompted me through it, and I felt like I went to Mars.
Mm.
Honest to God, like in the world of like what's called inner family systems, for those that don't know, this is a style of therapy, because we have an almost think of an inner family inside of you. You have like a protector, you have a manager, you have a whatever. And had this realization that my protector has been in the driver's seat of most of my life, just keeping this 13-year-old version of me that was like riddled with anxiety, that just didn't want to get hurt and just didn't want uncertainty. But this little bastard has been in the driver's seat, causing a lot of strife for me as an adult. But that verbiage came out in a therapy session, and she's like, I think we need to do some work around this, because that's not how you heal. You don't heal with anger. You don't heal with resentment. You don't heal with these kind of things. And she goes, let's do it. And she asked if I was receptive to an inner child session. And I'm like, that's what I live for. Like, I want to go to fucking Mars.
Mm.
And I did. And I cried so much because, so like the inner child session, for those who don't know, like I got quiet, meditative state, eyes closed. And she like basically had me talk to him as if like this 13-year-old Jared was in the room. And all he needed was because that's one of the things with inner child work. It's like, what does he need? And for me, it was love, it was compassion, it was grace, and it was to know everything's okay and it's all gonna work out just fine.
Mm.
That's all this little 13-year-old Jared needed. And so the cool thing with inner child work is I was able to, it's a work in progress, but you're able to like give that to them. So I was in that session basically like communicating with him. It sounds weird saying it out loud, but that's what I was doing, and I basically gave that to him, and I felt 40 pounds lighter when I left that session.
Mm.
But like I was like in the session, just like I wasn't boo hoo crying, but I'm just telling you, tears were streaming and streaming and streaming. And in that moment, it hit me really hard of like, I have to show compassion to these parts of myself that I don't like, because all of us have parts of ourselves. And the problem is when these parts of ourselves we don't care for stay in the dark. This
Mm.
manager, this operator, this the part of you that's always anxious, the part of you that just doesn't want to see you get hurt or fail, like we just suppress those because they're annoying. But that's like telling a little kid that to just like, we're going to keep you hidden in this room and no one's going to know you exist,
Mm.
and you can't heal like that. And so for me, I found that there's a book I've been meaning to read. It's called No Bad Parts, where there's truly no bad part of you. There's no good, they're bad, there just is. And it's like
Mm.
Like Kyle, like a mentor of mine, Kyle Cease says, it's not even the darkness. He calls it the unseenness because darkness causes
Mm,
it to like have this judgment around it. He goes, it's just the unseen. This
mm,
part of you that you currently have issues with that you need to heal through. We can't heal through something we avoid. So for me, that's been one of my biggest breakthroughs is when I have these things come up instead of like worry or anxiety or fear or this manager or protector, instead of being doing what I used to do is getting frustrated and getting like, I'll just power through it because that's what ambitious people do is it's more of like big deep breath. What's he need right now?
mm,
And I view it literally like I have a photo, a specific photo. I sent it to you, Ryan.
mm,
Of like I think about that version of myself in that moment. I go, what's he need right now? And it's really
mm,
hard not to have compassion. So
I love that. There's definitely a couple things I pulled from yours as well, where it's like one that I think we're all just trying to go through life to feel seen, right? I think that is it's like one of the most beautiful things ever, right? If you truly feel seen, right? You almost like I don't know about you, but anytime I feel seen, I'm like immediately like a puddle, right? Because I'm just like, that's just what we want. We want that peace. We want to feel like you
mhm.
see me, you understand me, you're there for me, right? And I think that is so important for you to give light to this 13-year-old Jared who has been Harry Pottered in this closet, like underneath the stairs for so long,
Yeah.
to open that door and give him the light he needs to just to let him know you're okay, right? I
Hmm.
think that like I think those words are so comforting, right? Like the anytime like when I've been on the phone with people like talking through like what I'm feeling or if I start to cry, like I've just noticed that the people who really get me, like the first thing they do when I start breaking down, they're just like, it's okay, right? Like it's okay. And just like that permission to cry and to like grieve and to feel, to say to someone like it's okay and not trying to be like you're gonna be fine, blah blah, like not try to solve it.
Yeah.
Just be like,
Sure.
it's okay.
Well, along those lines, there's a moment that happened that caught me off guard in therapy around this stuff that I tried holding it back. But every a good therapist sees your bullshit, and I
Mm,
started to like tear up. And my therapist, she gave this one analogy, and I lost it. Like I instantly like eyes welled up, and she's like, "What's coming up for you right now?" Because in the world of inner family systems, with like we have these parts of ourselves, like the protector, the this version of all these things,
mm,
she compared it to a living room, and she goes, so you have these parts of you. She goes, just imagine, because I've been having issues and struggles with like the protector, right? This
mm,
13-year-old kid that just doesn't want to fucking get hurt, right? And she goes, just picture you're in this living room, and like she goes, and there's this version of you on this couch and this version of you in this chair,
mm,
and you just, hey buddy, you're allowed to be in here.
mm,
I lost it. As soon as she just said, she's just trying to give me a fucking analogy. She just goes, and she's like, you're basically saying, you're just like, hey, you're allowed to be in here too. It's okay.
mm,
And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, I started like crying, and she's like, what's coming up for you? And I'm like that alone shows it was, I've like abandoned this version of myself,
mm,
right? Because it was causing strife and causing issues and struggles. But instead of accepting this version of myself and being like, hey, buddy, it's okay. Like you're
mm,
allowed to be here too. It was almost like a part of me was abandoning him.
mm,
And because this is the thing, this is something I've changed my mind on recently. Um, is we always talk about to level up, like the old version of you has to die, and like, oh, when you get doubtful, fuck that version of you. Like, yeah, I believe there's a level of that needs to
mm,
happen, but you got to have some fucking love first.
right.
Like I used to be in the camp of the fear, the doubt, the worry, fucking stomp on its throat because we achieved things. And it's like, yeah, we got to tap into that every now and then. But at the end of the day, like, or you can heal that little fucker. You
Yeah.
can go, hey, like what's going on? This part of you needs seen. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be worried. It's okay
Mm,
to be anxious, and you're allowed to feel those things here. Huh. Now that we accepted it, it's all of a sudden they went away. Now we can go conquer shit,
right.
but not on like the stairs of like the 13-year-old version of your head. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. I think that is like the way I'm looking at it is like now that this was like now that you've invited this Jared to the room, it's almost like it's now allowed you to show up more whole in your life, right? Like it's
Yeah.
allowed you to be more present and also like I think we tend to look at like these whether it's our inner child or anything like that, we tend to look at it as like negatives or mistakes or you're causing me so much pain instead of looking at it as like you're a strength, right?
Hmm.
And if I can understand you and feel you and heal you, then that is such a powerful piece that is now added to
Hmm.
your puzzle that is allowing you to show up. Like maybe 13-year-old Jared was an amazing empath or an amazing, like, introspective person that you are now inviting back to the room to bring more of that to your own life.
Yeah. The thing that I had a really hard time wrapping my head around, my ego didn't like this at all. When my therapist is like, you wouldn't be where you are without him. And I'm just
Mm.
like, like I had a hard time with that because I'm like, because the thing is the reason we develop improper coping mechanisms when we're little kids is because little kids don't know how to do any better. Right? How
Mm.
many clients of yours, I can attest with mine, how many clients of yours started binge eating because when they were a kid, they didn't know how to handle with mom and dad arguing. So they just found food.
Mm.
They just like right or whatever the case may be. It's because that was what a little kid did with the best they had. They don't have an arsenal. They don't have this. We can't expect a child. It's like when I see my 3-year-old niece throw a temper tantrum. She's a 3-year-old. That's what they do. They don't have an
Mm.
adult intellect and an arsenal of work of tools in this work having done. So it's like we can't expect that have this attachment and this expectation of them to understand how to handle it.
Mm.
But too often, what I am guilty of is being really treating my inner child like an asshole because all he
Mm.
was doing was handling the shit that came up when I was a little kid.
Mm.
And that was just what he knew how to do. So, but because of that, I've accomplished some dope shit in my life. I've
Right.
achieved my biggest dreams 10 times over under the or under the foundation of this little version that didn't want to get hurt. So I like did some crazy shit and I accomplished some stuff. So it was really hard for me to hear when my therapist was like, "Hey, you wouldn't be where you're at without him."
Right.
You know, the reason you check your boxes and the reason you like are so intense and work so hard and you're so ambitious is because of a coping mechanism that you learned when you
Mm.
were 13 and you would not be where you're at without this version. So there's part of you that needs to be thankful. And I had a
Mm.
hard time with that. So
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's almost like you were bullying that kid for who they were and how they showed up at that time. And it was only until you made peace with that that
mm-hmm.
you now you begin to see why they were so necessary at that point in time for you to get to where you were, right? It was like you needed
Yeah.
to survive, right? In order to get to where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, man.
Um, that was only one of our lessons so far.
All right, Ryan, your turn.
Holy
we're
shit.
seven, we're 7 hours in, ladies and gentlemen.
Maybe maybe we'll just do one each. Forgot how deep motherfuckers we are. Um, for me, I have a bunch I could talk about. Which one do I want to choose? Oh man. Well, one I'll say something that came up for me that I think hit a ton is that emotional security is our own responsibility. That was like
I
a
remember this one.
that was a big, big
This
lesson
is
for
recent.
me. This is, dude, I have, yeah, 5/9/24, as in that
That's
was the
right.
day I had this therapy session. That was like 7 days ago. So it's
Yeah.
like, uh, emotional security is our own responsibility. So basically, that just came up because, for me, like I said, my biggest challenge right now is navigating a breakup and the grief and healing that goes along with that. And for me, I basically through therapy discovered that one, I'm like the most critical person of myself, and I never really realized that, or maybe I did. I just didn't know how deep that root went. So for me, it's like whenever something I perceive is wrong in my life or needs fixing or needs healing, I tend to deep dive it, be like, how can I fix this? How can I solve this? How can I be better? How can I grow? Which I always like, I always like the devil's advocate of everything because so much in my life has been like, oh, well, this is like a really positive thing. You want to grow, you want to get better, you want to try to be your own fixer and solve your own issues and do all these things. But like the devil's advocate lesson that I needed to learn is that it's okay to be where you are, and your being self-critical can also be a detriment, right?
Mhm.
There's so many
Yeah.
people who are on one end of the spectrum who are they need to be way more self-critical because they need to learn and grow, or else they're stuck in the same pattern. For others, it's you are way too self-critical and you are not allowing yourself to be present and have grace and understanding and be proud of all the work that you've done because you're always trying to fix something. You're always trying to grow from something instead of
Mhm.
just feeling something, being rooted in something, being proud of something. So for me, it was finding out like emotional security is our own responsibility. And so for me, it was like trying to be a fixer in like my past relationship or, trying to understand like, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. I could have done this better. Right. And my therapist was just like, no, you're, you have to understand where you're at right now. Right. So again, this is
Yeah.
more self-awareness. You have to understand that you are grieving and that when you are, you're like my first thing was like, okay, finish this relationship book, listen to all these relationship podcasts, like learn, grow. What can I do better? How can I bring this? And instead she was like, of course you think you're a piece of shit. She's like, you're listening to all these relationship podcasts
Yeah.
and reading these books and you're looking at what you did. She goes, you did a great job. She goes, but you're looking at it and you're saying, this was shit. This was not good enough.
Yeah.
Right. And understanding that, that emotional security is our own responsibility, meaning like, hey, it's up to us to bring our own security and worth to any relationship, friendships, siblings,
Mhm. Mhm.
parents, partners. It's up to us to bring that. It's not up to us to give that, right?
Mhm.
And I think that was one of the more powerful things I pulled from therapy most recently because I think I just put a lot of guilt and shame on that
Sure.
instead of saying, no, like that isn't my responsibility. And it's also not my responsibility to constantly grow. It's not like I don't have to constantly grow. I know I'm going to naturally just because that's
Sure.
what I built and the habits I built, but I don't have to put so much pressure on myself to grow and
Mhm.
fix when I know I'm going to do it no matter what.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
beautiful.
So beautiful. Yeah. Wild. Very wild. Dope. Wow. Here we go. Very
Just
nice.
two big
Well,
old fucking meatheads talking
oh,
about
dude,
feelings and
crazy.
shit.
Me and my buddy, we call this my soft boy era.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's me
At least
just
you're a
fuck.
soft boy with big muscles. That's
That's
right,
right,
though.
exactly. My preference. It's
That's right.
but
That's right.
yeah, definitely. I think it's a good era for us to it's and I think it's just vulnerability and just really being more vulnerable to vulnerability. I think
Hmm.
that's like the beauty of it. Yeah, dude. I think this was good. I think I think we I think we've dived pretty deep, and I think
Let's go to the deeper end of the pool.
that's right, right.
That's right.
Um, where can people find you, man?
Well, if you want more deep bullshit, go listen to my show called Dieting from the Inside Out. I think we've got several episodes with Mr. Cassim on here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then next time Ryan, you and I are together, we are going to do an in person. I thought about going and doing a remote one, but I really want to do an in person one with you.
Yeah,
I just think, especially with what we get talking about, I feel like it's such a higher quality, not just like production, but like I think the
yeah.
conversation is higher quality. Um, so but otherwise, at Real Jared Hamilton, everywhere. My show Dieting from the Inside Out for more deep shit, boys and
We
girls.
love that.
That's
Love you,
right.
dude. Thanks for being.
Love
I
you,
think
man.
this is like This is your fourth or fifth time on my podcast, so
For fifth, there's no way.
fourth at least.
Maybe. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Anyways, he's here.
Anyways,
He's back.
that's right. He's back.
Oh, I love you. I'll see you
Love you,
guys in the
man.
next episode. Peace out.
Peace.